Hi there, Jerry Visick here, and I'm going to do a little demo on surface preparation for a technique which is known as dry brush, acrylic dry brush to be most specific with this setup. And you need the necessary tools to do it, of course. You know, whatever you're going to paint or draw, you know, you need the materials to do it with. But for our purposes, I'm going to use this surface to prepare, and I'll eventually, in another video, do a demo of a painting on this surface. So to prep for it, you need some kind of a surface. In this case, let me move the camera back a little bit. This is a big piece, well, middle-sized piece of balsa wood is what it is, and it's a drawing board, very lightweight drawing board that I then stapled a large piece of illustration board on. So if you can see the edge there, there's illustration board stapled with a power stapler right onto this piece of balsa wood. This piece of balsa wood is the surface that I can attach my artwork. The reason I need this surface is because when I do the actual dry brush later, when I start doing the dry brush technique, I'll need an area to get excess paint off my brush. And that's why, you know, this board looks kind of like an abstract painting. I could probably crop any little piece of it and make a great little painting with it. That's not to denigrate abstract painting. I love abstract painting. Anyway, so I've got this surface to work on. And I've got my surface to attach my artwork to. So I'm going to attach this to my board. So the way this is done is first you want to determine the size of your artwork. So I'm going to make a 6x8 image area here on this board, and this board's a little larger than 6x8. So if I want a 6x8 image area, that way I'm going to have some excess along the sides. I want to take a T-square, and I want to draw my 6x8 image area on here. Now the T-square is great because it's right angles, and this board is right angles. Most tables, not this table, most tables are right angles. The whole idea of a T-square is when you put a T-square down, you can put it against the edge of a board or a table and get consistent horizontal lines. And at the same time, when you put it against the edge of another side, you can get consistent vertical lines, depending on the orientation, what is vertical or horizontal. So I've got this board, excuse me, my tripod's bouncing around, that is cut at right angles, so I'm going to make a 6x8 format in here now. It's important that your T-square is always flush with your board so that you don't get, you know, crooked lines. And then I do some hash marks on this prior to doing this. I'm not just winging the 6x8 here. Draw a line down here, and then there'd be another one here. And really take your time lining it up. Now I've got my 6x8. Whoa, look at that. So I got a little sloppy there, and I have to come back in and just straighten that line out a little bit. But that's okay. I've got my 6x8 board there. Now I can make a border on my board, so to protect the edges. So this is artist tape. This is blue painter's tape that you get in you know, Home Depot or what have you. It has the same qualities as artist tape. It's not masking tape. Masking tape is too sticky and too hard to take up without tearing your board. So some type of artist tape or painter's tape. And I'm going to tape my border down. Excuse my tripod again. And place it right along the edges of that format. Tear the excess off, and then make it somewhat, but press it into the board pretty hard, but not so much that it's actually welded in there. Because you want to be able to take it off later, but at the same time, you don't want any paint to leak underneath the tape and mess up your beautiful border when you're finished with the work. Oh. Let me make sure I have the right line. See, I got sloppy there with the line earlier. That's actually okay to show you what you do. If you get sloppy with a line, come in and redraw it. It's perfectly fine. And we'll get one along the top here. Now I've got my 6x8 surface to paint on, and when I'm finished with my painting eventually, I can slowly take off this tape and have a clean border all the way around. Now I want to fasten it to my board here, my big balsa wood board here. So I've got some excess tape hanging over already because I had some tape hanging off the edges. That's okay. Whether you do or not, you're going to take more tape, or if it's larger, remember you're going to use a power stapler and staple your border down. You're going to take some more tape and make sure it is firmly attached to your board. You want your surface area that you're making your art on to be stable. Whether I'm stable or not, I want my image area stable. Okay, so there it is, attached to the board, and it's 6x8 surface. I have it taped off exactly, nice right angles. If I were to put it into a matte board later on, a picture frame, my right angles are indeed right angles, if you're going for rectangular or square work. So in addition to the products I've already shown you, the tools I've already shown you, you're going to need some brushes. Now these are horsehair bristle brushes, and these guys have been around the block. They've seen things, they've been places, and that's exactly what we want for creating our textured surface here. So you're going to need a couple of these. You need some paper towels. You always want paper towels when you're painting anyway. You want a cup of water. When you're using colors, you're going to want a couple of cups of water, but you want one of those handy. And for our purposes, we are using what is called white gesso. That's gesso by Liquitex. I like Liquitex products for acrylic. So this is gesso, and what gesso we use it for so many times is essentially to seal our work. So if you're doing a painting, oil painting, acrylic painting on a canvas, generally we'll seal the work with gesso. And then we can determine whether we want to smooth a rough surface, etc., whether we're going to sand it down. But anyway, we use it to seal our surface, and we can also use it to create textures. As it is less expensive than regular acrylic paint, we can use it more liberally and not worry about the cost quite as much. So I've got this. Now this could be any color gesso I wanted it to, You could put, if you have a pre-colored gesso, sometimes gesso comes in black and brown and other colors. So if you want a specific background, you can use a different color gesso. But this is white, so I'm going to open it and make sure it's going to come out. Now I'm going to pour it directly on this board. That's a little chancy because you might think, what if I pour too much? And that happens. If that happens, you're going to wipe some of it off. But you want a fairly liberal amount. Now, if you're nervous about pouring too much on, pour a little bit of this into a small container and then pick it up out of the small container with your brush and then apply it to your board. So let's pour a little here. Okay, now I hope you guys can see that blob there. So what I want to start doing is moving it around. And I want to cover the whole surface. Acrylic paint dries very quickly, especially in hot weather, hot, dry weather like we have in Southern California so much of the year. Now this is quite a bit of paint, and it's creating a very thick texture, as you can see. So after I get it covered, I'll show you something here. Maybe that's too much, maybe it's not. I'm going to set my brush aside. This particular demo I did at one point has a very textured surface to it. You can see the gesso's really, really built up in areas. And then you can see the texture is much more, refined in other areas. So if you're going for a texture that has this fun, almost landscape quality to it, you want to apply more gesso. This is another demo. I like doing these kinds of guys. I don't know why. But he's more of a refined texture all the way around. You see a little bit of buildup here, but generally he's more of a refined texture. But you must have a texture. You cannot do dry brush without a texture. So back to this. And it's okay that I stopped applying the gesture for a minute because you wanted to get a little tacky while you're doing this. Now let's say that's too much. Let's say it's like, I don't want a texture that's that thick. You can come and, this is being wasteful, but you can get some excess off with your brush. Wipe it onto a paper towel. Don't get it on your clothes. Don't get it on your floor. Don't get it on your carpet. It's almost impossible to get out. Don't let your cat walk on it and start tracking your carpet. Don't let anybody get to your acrylic paint while it's wet. Let people in your house know when you have wet work lying around, out of respect for them, so you don't get angry with them for doing something that they had no intention of doing. I've put pallets of acrylic paint in the refrigerator before and sealed it with plastic wrap and had to let anyone in the house know, don't eat that. So I'm getting some excess off. Do I need that much off? Maybe, maybe not, depending on what I'm trying to do. But I'm going to keep this amount on. So it's okay to wait a minute or even two between moving everything around to come back and move it around even more, because the tackier the acrylic paint gets, the more you're going to get your so-called hills and valleys. Because that's what you want, guys. You want, if you come in there with a magnifying glass, you can see a little landscape there. Remember, no texture, no dry brush. Here I have another brush here. It's a little smaller, but it's still very rough, okay? So, I'm kind of just loosely cross-hatching with this. I'm not going in one direction. I guess maybe you could try that. I don't know. Everything's an option, I suppose. And I'm very careful that I don't lose the texture. If I get a smooth area, I mean, that's fine if you want to paint on a smooth area, but if I get a smooth area and I want to apply, I want to use the dry brush technique, it just won't work. And I've seen many a student, really, really struggle with this technique simply because they didn't have a textured surface to work on to begin with. I like the other brush better, I think. And then I'm going to let it dry. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this demo separate from the actual painting demo. I'm going to let it dry because I want to paint on it, and I want it to dry naturally. You can dry acrylic paint with a blow dryer, but if you use a blow dryer on top of the gesso, that is this textured, you can actually start decreasing the texture of the gesso because the blow dryer, the force of the blow dryer can start to flatten out your textures. So generally, when you're making a painting and you're sealing a canvas, generally they tell you to let it dry overnight to be safe. I'm probably not going to wait that long, but I'm going to stop. Oh, what's that? Some foreign object got on there. I'm going to stop this in a minute so that my texture can dry. And even though this is a small board and it's taped down, I don't know if you can tell. I can't lift this up right now because I got paint on there. I don't know if you can tell that the board is starting to, just buckle just slightly like this, just slightly. So it's another reason it's important to have this taped down. Another thing students can do, artists can do, is when you have your initial board, sometimes we'll paint a big X, a big thick X of acrylic on the back of the surface that can also reduce it from buckling. I don't know why I marked up the back of that. Here too, you could just crescent board, illustration board, and you just paint a big X. Let that dry, and that's going to stabilize your board more too. Okay, thanks for your time. I'll see you with the next demo, which will be palette and color mixing before the actual painting starts. Thank you.